Hi, I'm Diane Brown. I'm the founder of RxART. Looking forward to talking to you about it. This is a student's perspective.
Hello, I am Jennifer Brown, and you are watching The Student's Perspective. Today I will be talking to Diane Brown. Thank you so much for watching. Diane, if you wanted to take a moment and introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, you know my name now. It's Diane Brown. Jennifer and I are not related, but nice to have somebody with the same last name here across from me. I founded RxArt 20 years ago to make healthcare facilities less frightening, especially for children. In the last 10 years, we've concentrated exclusively on pediatric facilities. It's interesting, but we've had some resistance from hospitals in the past because they can't figure out why it's free. They thought there must be a catch. There's no catch. We fundraise for every project. We love what we do. We feel so privileged to be able to improve hospitals, especially for kids, for their parents, and for the amazing staff that cares for them.
That's really awesome and definitely an inspiring thing to have. Do you have a certain driving motivation or any inspiration behind as to why you started RxArt?
Oh, sure. Doesn't everyone have a driving force between why they start something? I had an art gallery for 16 years, and then I was a private curator. While I was working as a private curator, I had some health issues, and I had to have a CAT scan. It was my first CAT scan. I was afraid. I was afraid they'd find what they were looking for, which happily they didn't. But it was a really awful experience. I mean, it's not really such a scary machine, but I was afraid, and it was just cold, impersonal, unpleasant. The room was starkly white, nothing that could distract me. And so I had to use my imagination. The only way I could escape the room, which I was dying to do, was to go somewhere else in my imagination. And I imagined a Matthew Ritchie painting going across the ceiling. I got completely involved in Matthew's imagery, and then the test was over. I thought, whoa, this is so incredible. I'd like to do this for other people. So I started asking collectors, curators, critics, artists, everyone in my circle, do you think I can put museum quality art in hospitals, not charge the hospital, and pay the artists? And everyone told me I was insane, except for one person, and that was Aggie Gunn. She was at that time the president of the Museum of Modern Art. And there's a great film, Aggie. If you haven't seen it, look it up on the internet. It's amazing. It's a privilege to know this woman. She's like no one else in the world. She encouraged me. So I tried it, and it was super hard at first. One of my advisory board members told me for a couple of years, he would call up frequently and say, Diane, just keep pushing that rock up the hill, it will get there. It felt like that, but it has. And now it's just gotten to be so much fun. I have an amazing team. Hospitals are anxious to work with us instead of being afraid. We never wanted to put conventional things into a hospital. I didn't want to put Disney characters for sure. And I didn't want to put like a rainbow, a tree, and a sunshine. I mean, I wanted to put something that was unfamiliar, something that was challenging in a positive way that the children, their families would have to examine. I think if there's something that's expected, you walk right by it, but turn people on to contemporary art.
That's really amazing. I mean, honestly, very, very inspiring. Again, do you ever have any input? Do you help with the design process? Do you let the whoever you're commissioning, do you kind of let them come in, offer you some designs, or yeah, in any way?
Well, we really do at this point transformative installations. And I feel strongly we don't tell the artist what to do. When we are given a project, discuss with the hospital the location for that project, and then the patient body, what the demographics are, you know, where it's located physically. Is that on the border of Mexico? Is it in Canada? Um, so they have different constituencies. And so we try to choose an artist that will speak to those patients. And also, if it's a specific unit, that's taken into consideration. So we look at where the hospital wants us to work. And then in the office, my team of three, it's a fantastic team, we brainstorm artists and think about who would be best for that project. And then we take these artists to the hospital or take these suggestions to the hospital, and they get to choose, make the ultimate decision. We don't let them tell us who to choose. If that's what they want to do, they can pay for it themselves. But if we're paying for it, we're going to be suggesting the artists. And if the hospital chooses an artist, then they have to sign a contract saying that's who they want to work with. And then we go to the artist and say, do you have time? Does this interest you? I mean, sometimes artists want to work with us and don't have time. I mean, Jonas Wood, we asked him many times to work with us. And finally, he had an idea and a time, and it turned into these magical privacy curtains. But so then the artist will make a preliminary drawing, submit that to the hospital, they approve it. So the hospital's in on it all the way through. But we want the work that's installed to be sophisticated. We want it to represent the artist's practice. We don't want it to be something completely other. It doesn't make sense.
Hmm. So, have you ever met an artist that maybe held the same driving factors as you, or even just similar passions as you?
The artists we work with are all astonishing artists. They're world famous. They're so talented. They're so generous of spirit. And we pay the artists an honorarium. I mean, Jeff Koons, Takashi Murakami, Jonas Wood, these people, their work goes for millions of dollars. And we pay them an honorarium that is significant for a small nonprofit, but completely insignificant to these artists. Some of the artists even will accept the honorarium, and the next day we find that we've had a contribution from them in the exact same amount.
Oh,
So
wow.
they do this because they're changing a child's experience. I mean, and most of them say, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to change, to help children." It's just, I mean, if
Absolutely.
I could make art that would help children, I would be so happy.
Hmm. That really is wonderful. Do you have a personal favorite, maybe installation or something that just really stuck out to you throughout all of the projects that you have
Always the one I'm doing at that moment.
designed?
Yeah, I work with such phenomenal artists, and we do such exciting projects. And as RxArt grows, our projects are more and more inventive and more extensive, and it's just so much fun. So I'm always most excited about what I'm doing at that moment.
Mhm. That's really awesome. And do you have maybe a certain goal that you wanted to reach, a certain many places that you wanted to get this art integrated, or did you just kind of going with the flow and seeing how things go?
No, we're not going with the flow. We're really ambitious. Um, I I told my team when we first got together that my vision was for RxR to be intergalactic. So I think it should be everywhere. I think
That
it
would be
should be in
amazing.
every city in every country. We're working in Canada, and we're starting to, we've been talking actually to Chelsea and Westminster in London for some time hoping to do a project with them. Their wheels turn very slowly, but when we finally do something, it'll be awesome.
I definitely agree. I'm pretty excited for that to happen. I'm sure you will end up getting
Yeah,
there. So, have you did you want to talk about maybe some of your history before art, X art? Maybe you mentioned an art gallery and one other business. Did you want to talk about a little bit of that?
sure. I was pre-med in college. I really did not want to be a doctor. All I wanted to do was study art history. The trip to Aspen every semester so that I would stay as pre-med. So I became a very good skier and a chemistry and biology major.
Mhm.
When I got out of school, I got married immediately and supported my husband while he got his degree. And then I thought, I want to be what I want to be. I, I'm not gonna do this lab work forever. So I went back to school in art history. I didn't stay long because I felt like I was really old. I was already 24 and seemed really ancient to me. And I was in a huge hurry. I wasn't learning how to think or look critically at art. I was just memorizing things in these early, these beginning courses. So I had a child. At that time, I left school, and during the times that I would have been in class, I bought journals. I went to museums, and I really just started learning about art. And I think the best way you could learn is by looking. I opened my gallery knowing nothing. I didn't know any artists. It was insane. I rented a space and I called a critic and said, I'm going to be a great art dealer, but I don't know any artists. Would you introduce me? And the critic said, not even for money. So um, and about a year later, he wound up coming to my gallery asking for some help and wanting something. I said, oh, remember me. Um, but I opened my gallery. Because I had no artists, I went to New York to Marion Goodman Gallery, who had multiples then, was one of her businesses, and I bought some master prints so nobody could say they weren't great. And I sold them that first summer I was open. And gradually I would meet artists because their dealers were all on the phone and I had no one to talk to. So they would come in and talk to me. And my gallery grew. It was in Washington, D.C. I was more ambitious for it, so I moved to New York and started there. I had a gallery there for 9 years, 7 in Washington and 9 in New York. It was a really good gallery. I was very, very proud of it. 92, as the art world was tanking, I closed my gallery and started working for a private collector. He had a corporate collection and a private collection, and he asked me to curate them. So he said that the art he bought from my gallery was worth more than he paid for it, and he loved living with it. So he said, do the same for my company. It was a great opportunity because he trusted my judgment, and there was nothing corporate about this collection. I mean, it was pushing boundaries of what you would put in a corporation, but it was really fun. I mean, it was a bunch of young financial whizzes who didn't know much about art, and they were initially really hesitant and sort of, well, yeah, they were more than hesitant.
Mhm.
Um, and it was fun talking to them about the art, teaching them about the art, and getting them to turn their opinions around, to change their opinions and get excited about the art.
Mhm. So, have you, I guess maybe what was your choice in deciding to go for art? Do you personally dabble in design and do some art
Oh,
yourself?
no, I have super high standards, so I don't want to make art. I love looking at it. I can't live without it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's really I didn't grow up in a house that had art, in a home that had art. But
Mhm.
since I was a little girl, that's what I wanted to look at. And I remember when I was 16 and got my first car, I wasn't allowed to go to the art museum in Cleveland where I lived because my father thought it was in a bad neighborhood. So I would sneak to the museum on Saturday morning. Can you imagine? And my dad would say, "What did you do this morning, honey?" And I would say, "Oh, I was in the parking lot of the big boy with the kids and just hanging out. And then I came home and studied." And he would go, "Oh, nice." It was okay to be hanging out in a parking lot of a fast food restaurant, but I was really at the museum.
Mhm. I think
So
that definitely shows to tell how much you do appreciate art, and I think it's really wonderful how you have managed to correlate that into something so very profound, honestly, because I think that there are probably so many children out there definitely loving the artwork that you have put into these children's hospitals. Have you ever met maybe a patient that went into the room prior and it was totally bland and they didn't like it, maybe they were scared from it, and then they saw the transition? Did you ever meet somebody that
we
experienced
have,
that?
we have, there are very strict HIPAA laws, but sometimes a patient or a patient's family will talk to us.
Mhm,
There was a little boy who came to Cedars-Sinai where we had installed Urs Fischer's work in the ceilings and the headboard
mhm,
walls. And it's so fabulous. It's on our website, but there's splashes of color with elephants. And the elephants all have silly looks on their faces and they're very funny. And this little boy, unfortunately, was a repeat customer at the hospital.
mhm.
He had chronic illness and had to continue to come in from time to time. And one time he came in and the nurse said to us, he said, he came in and he said, "Can I have an elephant room this time?" So if the child can come to the hospital with some anticipation of excitement, it's just
Mhm,
amazing. Another little girl at Chalk at Children's Hospital of Orange County, the great Rob Pruitt installation in the radiology department. We did 425 long walls and the waiting room and the CAT scan room. The CAT scan room, we wrapped the scanner itself with, like they do those bus wraps. It was
mhm.
wrap on the scanner, and we wallpapered the room in this narrative of a seascape and orcas and all kinds of animals. And this little girl said that she had been coming to have CAT scans. She was 9 since she was 2, and she always felt that the machine was going to swallow her. But this time it felt fun. So
That really is amazing.
yeah, it's great. It's so great when people give you feedback, and the
Mhm.
nurses and the doctors have given us a lot of feedback, and it's just really gratifying.
That really is. So, walking into these rooms, do you ever try and convey a certain type of mood from the paintings or installations? Do you ever have a certain game plan prior to the project?
Well, sure, our game plan is, what's best for these students or for what these patients, and, the artists, many of the artists have children, but even the artists that don't have children, I mean, they get it, they understand, and they have great
Mhm,
empathy, great imaginations. So the plan is just to uplift them, to give them something that will delight them, that will make them curious. We had a funny example at St. Jude. We were going to work at St. Jude, and Marlo Thomas, who's phenomenal, couldn't really is in charge of everything. And she wanted Rob Pruitt's sparkle pandas. I don't know if you're aware of them, but they're just amazing. They're these big panda paintings that are made with glitter. They're incredible, and everyone is delighted by them. And that's what she wanted. And I had to go with the artists at 9 o'clock in the morning to Memphis, Tennessee to defend what we were going to put in the hospital. And at the board meeting, I said, well, we can put in these sparkle pandas that Marlo wants, but we have to put plexiglass boxes around them because the glitter can become dislodged over time.
mhm.
And that's too dangerous for these kids who are so compromised.
Right.
And the board said, absolutely not. We can't have plexiglass boxes around anything. The kids have to be able to touch the art. Has to be totally safe, and they have to be able to touch it. And it has to
Mhm.
be so Rob Pruitt had to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to make his art really exciting and and safe. So he decided he wanted to use spangly board. I don't know if you know what that is. It's used on outdoor car washes and things. They're those 1-inch mylar discs that are on hooks, and they sort of twinkle in the breeze.
Okay. Mhm.
So he chose spangly board. So we ordered spangly board samples from all the manufacturers in the country, and happily there weren't too many. I think there were 6. We
Oh,
sat in the
wow.
office picking spangles off the hooks, and if we could pick them off, so could the kids, and it wasn't gonna be safe. There
Right.
was one company that we couldn't get the spangles off the hooks, thank
Mhm.
God. So that was the company we chose to go with. Of course, they didn't make the right colors, so every spangle had to be painted.
Mhm.
I mean, it was such a labor of love, but the paintings at St. Jude that Rob did, which the kids blow on them, they wave their hands in front of
Oh.
them, and they just twinkle. They're so fabulous.
So, do you I'm unfamiliar, I can't remember the name of the flowers on all the walls. I looked at one of those
That's
in the past.
Murakami,
Okay, yeah. So do you
Takashi
wanna talk
Murakami.
about some of the inspiration on that one? Maybe, I don't know if you've talked to the artist about where they kind of gain that passion from, because I think I did see the pandas, and they're the sleeping pandas, and they're right in
No,
that.
no, that's Anne Craven.
Oh, okay, so I'm
Um,
thinking of the wrong one.
Rob Pruitt is you have to go to the St. Jude.
Okay.
It was done in 2008, maybe.
Mhm.
I think 2008. So you have to go way back in our history, but you can see it on
Okay.
our website. The Takashi Murakami we just finished a few weeks ago. He's a super, super famous artist. Um, and when we were asked to do the CAT scan suite at Children's National Medical Center, which it's a hospital we love. I mean, it's a hospital that's so remarkable in their care of the kids. The staff is phenomenal. We just love working with them and would pretty much stand on our heads for them. And so they wanted us to do the CAT scan suite, and we wanted to do something incredible.
Mhm.
Flowers on the wallpaper are signature images of Murakami's. And we thought, oh my God, he lives in Tokyo. Do you think Murakami would do this project? I thought, probably not. But if we don't ask him, he definitely won't do it. So we called Gagosian Gallery, who represents him. And Gagosian Gallery, I have to say, has also been super generous to RxArt. And they said, well, let's see, we'll reach out to him. And he agreed. And um, we just couldn't believe he agreed. We were so excited. And he and his studio worked hard to make this phenomenal project because the CAT scan relates so well to the wallpaper, but it's
Right.
different.
That is
And
really wonderful, yeah.
we love it. We were very proud of it.
Mhm. So, do you have a certain did you think about expanding maybe where these projects stem from? Have you ever thought about, or have you maybe spoken to patients and talked about, because you mentioned how you stem from your imagination when you were in that position and how
Mhm.
you kind of had to sit there and really reel deep. Have you ever spoken to a patient that maybe had ideas of their own and had wishes that they had certain pictures on the walls? Have you ever maybe come into contact with something like that?
Well, we don't ask the patients what they want on the walls because probably they're too sick to make that decision or but
Right.
we did go to Flint, Michigan with William Wegman. You probably know
Mhm.
his dogs, the Weimaraners. Do you know?
Okay.
Yeah. And we put loads of pictures of Weimaraners, Bill's dogs, in
Mhm.
this. And then Bill and I went to the various patient rooms, and he had made these he'd made copies of little tiny dogs' heads that he on a piece of paper, and he gave the kids these pieces of paper that were blank paper, but it had a dog's head on it, and the
Mhm.
kids could draw, arms and legs or whatever they wanted. I mean, Bill dresses his dogs up in crazy costumes, and he worked with the kids to draw funny dogs. So,
It does seem like
sometimes
sorry.
sometimes we can work with, yeah,
And it does seem like you come in contact with a lot of artists that definitely hold a certain amount of, I guess, empathy, and they are very passionate about what they're doing. And some of the works that I did happen to go through and look on your site, it is really wonderful. A lot of the projects go wide and far about the context between them. So really, it is amazing what you are doing. Um, so your first project, do you want to maybe talk about the first project you integrated and which hospital it was?
sure. When I first started, I thought I knew everything. I thought, "I'm the expert, I know everything," and I went out, I raised money, and then I went out and I bought a lot of art that I thought was perfect for hospitals. At that point, it wasn't pediatric, and then I couldn't find a hospital that wanted any part of me. I mean, I was known in the art world, but not in the hospital world.
Mhm.
Basically, one of my, advisory board members, who was a trustee emeritus of Rockefeller, said, "You will let her try." Let her install this artwork, and if the patients don't like it, if the staff doesn't like it, we'll take it out.
Right.
So, um, I had a 3-month trial, and we had a book out for the patients and the staff to write comments, and if there was a picture that they didn't like, we took it out. There were 3 pictures they didn't like, and I still don't understand why, but it didn't matter because it gave them some ownership, that
Mhm.
they were to say, "We don't want this picture, we live here. Okay, we'll take it out." But, yeah, it was a great learning experience because I thought I knew everything and turned out I knew nothing. Uh, so I learned you have to include the staff in every decision,
Mhm.
but we did put great in Rockefeller, really extraordinary art. And I was at a party. We put art in every patient room, and it's not teaching, it's a research, sorry,
That's
it's a
okay.
research hospital. And so there are about 30 patient rooms, and we were able to put art in every room. And I was at a party not too long after I installed Rockefeller, and this young man asked me what kind of work I did. I said, "Oh, I put art in hospitals." He said, "Well, if you want to see a hospital with art, go to Rockefeller." I said, "Oh, that's my project." And he said that one of his friends was in an AIDS study. And they both knew this friend had AIDS. This was like 18 years ago. They
Mhm.
both knew the friend had AIDS, but visiting him in a hospital was different than going to his studio, do you know?
Mhm.
So the friend said that as he went up the elevator to the patient floor, he was so nervous about what he would say. How do you start the conversation? Not how's your AIDS? What do you talk
Mhm.
about?
Right.
So he got to the patient floor, and his friend was standing in the door of his room. And the friend said, "Oh my God, you've got to see this. I have a Joe Meyerowitz in my room, and there's a Mel Bachner down the hall. There's real art here." So then they were able to start talking about art and just it made the conversation easy.
Mhm.
So,
And I think it definitely does because when you are, and I know nobody wants these children to be going through any sort of these
right.
situations, but I think it is amazing that you offer them a sort of break in the chaos that they ensue. And there's the one installation that you have, and I'm sorry again, I don't remember which name it
It's
is,
okay.
but it's this big room and the walls and the ceilings, it's just these very close up of like fabric and just very abstract images, and it
It's
almost gives you
Dan Cullen. It's a
okay.
Dan Cullen project, and it took 5 years.
Oh wow.
Yes, we had a lot of stumbling blocks,
Mhm.
but it's such an amazing project that was all painted by hand. It started out with Dan wanting to do an image of confetti falling. So
Okay.
we hired confetti cannons, we hired photographers, we hired a studio, we did a confetti shoot, and then Dan said he wanted the confetti blown up like 1,000 times. So
Wow.
instead of little confetti, it's gigantic confetti. And then we had a team of architects, a photography studio, and dance studio all worked together to make a 3D model of the space that would make a continuous image. So it
Mhm.
goes from the ceiling down to the walls, across around the poles. It's a break in the imagery, and it was so
Right.
complicated to do. And we had, instead of wallpaper, we had it hand painted. It was hand painted by Colossal. This
Mhm.
company does all the outdoor signs in New York City, at least, and I think in Los Angeles. They're incredible painters, and they have pictures. They have a little cartoon. Each one has a cartoon about this big of what a little area looks like, and they just paint it. It's fantastic.
It
They
really
were painting
is.
for a couple months, about a group of about 10 guys. They painted 7 days a week. They were on their backs on scaffolding, painting the ceiling. But I mean, they loved it too. I mean, just knowing you're helping kids is such a
Mhm.
gift.
I think that is definitely some driving motivation for whoever is working on it. And I mean, wow, that's a lot of hands on deck for that project. But I do want to say that it definitely came out very successful because as I was scrolling through these projects, it really made me stop and kind of zero in and focus in on what was in the paintings. And it really did almost make me slow down for a minute. And it just made me think about how these patients walking through, they get a break. So it really is fascinating how you're going about that.
That's
Um,
the activity room for these kids. And St. Mary's is a hospital where these children live there.
mhm.
It's for children with life complicating problems.
Right.
They need 24-hour care and they can't be cared for at home. They also have an afternoon program, after school program for kids that aren't inpatients, but it's their playroom and a lot of the kids do live there. And it was so important to do something extraordinary. And I've been to the hospital many times, and the kids have thanked me and told me how what a difference it makes that the room was so ugly before and now it's wonderful. So that, it's just fantastic.
It really is, and I think that filling in all the details of the room just seriously livens up the space rather than hospitals are quite bland, so I think
Yeah.
it does definitely add some characteristics for the patients. Have you thought about doing or have you maybe done an installation that's more tactile that these patients get to interact with in a safe way?
Sure. Well, the Rob Pruitt with the Spangly board, they can
Mhm.
touch.
Okay.
And we also did Will Cotton on two large paintings at St. Jude. They're each 6.5 feet tall by 10 feet wide. And they're oil paintings. And I didn't think about it when we commissioned Will. But then as the paintings were finished, we had to have a toxicology report. And I thought, oh my God, what could be more toxic than oil paint, right?
Mhm.
And so we sent it to the most rigid or stringent toxicology expert. And they were deemed safe because there was a layer of acrylic varnish on top that was so thick that she said the child would have to be licking the varnish long enough to lick all of it off, and probably they'd be noticed by then, or
Mhm.
chew the canvas, which would not be possible. So, and the other thing that's tactile is we're doing our first sculpture. We've just commissioned it from the Haas brothers. It's going to be a 14-foot tall tree, um, with beaded leaves and a monkey hanging from it. That's going to be the entrance to Children's National. It's going to be great.
That is gonna be I'm really excited to see
Yeah,
that.
thank me too.
Do you think, I mean, if it's even safe to do so, is it gonna be like a climbable tree? Because I
No,
know that's something that
absolutely not. No, 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 no. In fact, that's one of the reasons we haven't done more sculpture. I mean, you can't
Right,
let children climb these things. So this is
right.
going to have a base that's tall and rounded and slick. It'll be a marble base, but it's just not climbable. Too. We're very excited. We
Mhm.
just got the rendering. I- What is today? Tuesday, last week. So very
Right.
excited. During this pandemic, I don't know what day it is or what week it is.
Yeah, I know, this whole year.
Every day's the same.
Did you possibly have any number of projects underway right now, or do you try and focus on one at a time? Do you like to kind of branch out and get as much as you can?
We usually have about 8 projects in the pipeline,
Okay.
and they're all happening at different they're technically all should be happening at different
Mhm.
stages, but inevitably 2 or 3 wind up being installed the same month or
Mhm.
within weeks apart. So in since, May, since June, we've installed 3 projects, and another one will be installed in December.
That's
And
really great.
each of the projects takes more than a year to work on, but
Mhm.
um, then they wind up bunching up for some reason.
Mhm. Speaking of the pandemic, did that give you any sort of setbacks, or did
Oh,
you
yes.
yeah,
Oh,
were you
yes.
able to maybe contact people in that time, get some more connections out there, or did it really just kind of put everything on pause?
Well, the projects we were working on, from the hospital's point of view, were paused. They were just overwhelmed with taking care of their COVID patients.
Right.
Uh, Working on projects were at home. unable to go to their studios with their assistants. And for the most part, they just kept making their projects better and better and better. So the projects just became extraordinary.
Mhm.
Our fabricators weren't in their shops, so nothing could get fabricated. But in May, fabricators began to go back to their shops, like one
Okay.
person at a time, and we were able to start getting things fabricated. And at least in New York, the pandemic calmed down enough that we could install. So we installed Harlem,
Mhm.
and then we installed another group of privacy curtains at Children's National in the emergency department and the Murakami project in, well, in the last few months, just in the last month, actually. A Nicholas Party project that we assumed would be completed by now was not completed because, again, Nicholas was working on it. It got
Mhm.
so much more complicated. Now it's being sent to the fabricator on Monday. We're really excited. It's a 207-foot long corridor at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. But it also the COVID problem also impacted us in that hospitals need us more than ever.
Mhm.
So we have a huge list of hospitals that wants to work with us, that we're in conversations with. And it impacted our fundraising because every year we have a big gala, and the gala raises at least half of our operating costs. So, and project costs. So instead of raising, $1 million, we're raising relatively little. I mean,
Right.
we're having artists create prints for us. We're sending out fundraising letters, but you can't sell a table or an artwork, a big artwork at a
Mhm.
gallery now. So that's made it hard or more challenging anyway. But we're going to do it.
I think so as well. I mean, I'm glad it did give you the chance to get of hospitals that want to join you in this amazing process. Did you want to add any thoughts before we wrap it up? Did you want to throw anything out there about RX Art or anything about you personally?
No, I'm really pleased to be able to talk to you. It's a pleasure. I feel like every person that learns about RxArt is a step forward for the organization. So I love spreading the word, and I'm honored to have been able to take part in this.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us. It was a really great conversation. So before we do wrap it up, if you could maybe offer your student self any piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, my advice is that work is such an important part of your life. Don't do anything that except that you have great passion for it. Follow your passion. You can make it happen. Just definitely do something that fulfills you and fills you with passion.
Yeah, and I think speaking from the best because you definitely have followed your dreams there and
Yeah.
your passions. And I'm really happy you did get to do that because you have really impacted probably so many people around the world. So, really, thank you for all of that. Where can we find you on social media?
Oh, RXR.net.
All right,
Yeah.
awesome.
Please
Okay.
follow our Instagram, which I think is just at RXArt. I
Hmm.
think. Yeah.
We can definitely put a little tag on there for you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
talking to
you
me.
so
It was a
much.
really
Really a
great
pleasure.
conversation. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of The Student's Perspective. If you liked it, just give it a like and share. Thank you so much.